The fork was already in the air when she said it. "Let's hear it for the help." My daughter-in-law lifted her glass toward the woman who'd cooked for 11 hours, and the table laughed before it understood what it was laughing at. My wife went still. I didn't. And in the 3 seconds that followed, I decided something I would spend the next year deciding whether I regretted. I want to be honest with you before I go further. I've replayed that night more times than I can count, and I still don't know if I'm the hero of it. Stay with me anyway. You'll want to weigh in by the end. Let me back up. My name's Walter. I'm 66, retired, and for 31 years I made my living knowing the right people in this city. My wife is Rosa. And here's the thing you need to understand first, because everything turns on it. Daniel and Maya are my children from my first marriage. Rosa is their stepmother. She walked into their lives when Daniel was 16, old enough to slam the door, young enough to still need a mother behind it. For 14 years she knocked on that door with nothing but patience, and never once demanded it open. That's what makes the word help land the way it did. Rosa spent 14 years earning a place at that table, and Brooke took it away in one sentence, for a laugh. We were at Daniel's house in Hyde Park. His wife is Brooke. For 6 years I'd watched Brooke treat Rosa like furniture that occasionally got in the way. It was never one big thing. That's the trick of it. It was the laminated card she once handed Rosa, an actual laminated card listing how she preferred her food prepared, because, and I'm quoting, "I know this isn't really your background." It was the 40 texts about how to watch her dog. It was the way she said Rosa's name slowly, like Rosa might not catch it. And under all of it, the quiet message Brooke never quite said out loud. "You're not really one of us." Each one was small enough to deny. Each one taught Rosa to make herself smaller. I told myself Brooke was young. I told myself she'd grow. Then she raised that glass. The room was warm and gold. Daniel laughed, first my own son, the boy Rosa had packed lunches for, sat up with through fevers, driven to practice when I was traveling, and that's the part I carried home like a stone in my coat. My daughter Maya shifted in her seat and looked at her plate. Rosa's brother, Hector, set his fork down hard enough that the plate rang, and Rosa folded her hands in her lap and looked at nothing. I reached over and took her hand. It was cold. "That was unkind, Brooke," I said, quiet, almost gentle. She rolled her eyes like I'd missed an obvious joke. "Oh my God, Walter, she knows I'm kidding. She's been running around all night like a caterer. I'm just saying thank you." She sat back, perfectly relaxed. That relaxation is what undid me. A nervous person can be forgiven. She wasn't nervous. She was comfortable. I put my napkin on the table. "Rosa, get your coat. We're going home." "Don't be dramatic, Dad," Daniel said. And there it was, that tone, the one that made me the problem. I didn't argue. I just stood. Behind us, as we reached the door, Brooke's voice climbed after me. "You're leaving over a joke?" I didn't turn around. Some questions answer themselves. Here's what I want to say to you. If you've ever sat at a table where the laughter was about someone you love, and you felt your whole body go hot and useless, you know exactly the silence I drove home in. It snowed lightly the whole way. The radio off. Rosa breathing in that careful way people breathe when they're deciding not to cry. When we pulled into the drive, she finally spoke. She'll never see me as their mother. 14 years and I'm still the help. You're not the help. You raised those kids. To Brooke, she said, "It's the same thing." Then she went inside and straight to bed. I sat in the dark a long time. And I'll tell you what I felt, because I think you've felt it too. Not rage. Rage is loud and burns clean. This was colder. This was the feeling of a man who spent his whole life able to fix things, sitting in his own house, unable to fix the one thing that mattered. So I picked up my phone. "Now I need you to understand who Brooke was, professionally, because it matters." Brooke was a development director at a children's literacy organization downtown. Sharp, genuinely good at the work. 3 months earlier, she'd been put forward for something bigger, a seat on the board of a statewide coalition. Regional visibility, the kind of thing that makes a career. Daniel had told me about it on the phone, proud, like it was his own. And what Daniel didn't know, what Brooke didn't know, was that I'd spent 3 decades placing people in exactly those rooms. I'd recommended 2 of that coalition's board members. I'd consulted on their leadership search 9 years back. I wasn't on a payroll, but when those people needed someone vetted, they called me, and I always picked up. I didn't call anyone that night. I want to be clear about that. I sent a Christmas message I send dozens every year to a woman named Priya, who runs the coalition's nominating process now. Merry Christmas. Hope the year was kind. Let's catch up after the holidays. 40 of those went out. I told myself that's all it was. I almost believe it. The next morning Rosa made coffee and stared out the window. I'm sorry, she said. For what? For making you leave. You didn't make me do anything. Brooke did. She shook her head. Daniel's going to be furious. Maya thinks I'm fragile. And Brooke, she stopped. She'll never let it go. Good, I said. Neither will I. Walter, please don't do anything. It isn't worth it. But I was already somewhere else. At 11, Priya called me. Not the other way around, hold on to that, because I held on to it for a long time. Walter, I was going to reach out anyway. And then your note came in. Listen, funny coincidence. A name crossed my desk this week. Brooke Avery. That's your daughter-in-law, isn't it? My stomach tightened. It is. She's up for the coalition seat. I'm on the committee. A pause. I could hear her stepping across ice. There's some history I think you should know. She worked with Delia Vance a few years ago on a joint campaign. It ended badly. Delia's been vocal about not working with her again. Delia Vance. I knew Delia. Ran a Cincinnati nonprofit for 15 years before she retired. Principled to the point of inconvenience. If Delia had a problem with you, the problem was usually real. What happened? I asked. Brooke stood up in a board meeting and pinned a failed campaign entirely on Delia. In front of the donors. Delia resigned a month later. I closed my eyes. Of course she did. Here's where I want to stop and ask you something. Because I asked myself the same thing with the phone warm against my ear. If a door opened in front of you like that, if the universe handed you the exact lever, would you pull it? Or would you tell yourself that wanting to is the first sin? I genuinely don't know which of us is right. Keep listening. I found Delia's number. Took me 20 minutes digging through old rosters. I stared at it before I dialed. She answered on the third ring. I told her who I was. There was a silence with real weight in it, and then she said, "She's family to you, not a question." My daughter-in-law, 6 years. Then why are you calling me? Because I need to know who she is, I said. And I'd rather hear it from someone who was in the room. So Delia told me. The campaign, the shortfall, the meeting where Brooke rose and calmly, with documents already prepared, laid the entire failure at Delia's feet. Documents prepared in advance. She'd known what she was going to do before she walked in. She's not incompetent, Delia said, almost sad. That's the worst of it. She's excellent. She presents beautifully. She closes the gift. She's also willing to burn a person to keep herself warm, and she does it smiling. I believe you, I said. Can I ask what she did to you? I told her about the dinner, the 11 hours. The word help lobbed across the table. And I told her the part that mattered, that the woman she'd insulted had spent 14 years quietly mothering children who weren't born to her. Delia was quiet a moment, and when she spoke again, she was gentle. I'm sorry that happened to your wife. A beat. You're going to do something, aren't you? I'm going to make sure the right people have accurate information. Good, she said. Somebody should have, years ago. Let me tell you what I told myself. Because the lies we tell ourselves are the most interesting part of any story. I told myself, I'm not destroying her. I'm removing a disguise. The information is true. I'm a conduit, not a weapon. Every word of that was accurate. And it was also exactly what a man tells himself when he wants to do a thing and needs permission. That night Daniel called. I picked up. Dad, what the hell? You walked out of Christmas. Mom's upset, Brooke's upset, you humiliated everybody. And that word, Mom. He still called Rosa that. He'd called her that for years. He could call her his mother and still laugh when his wife called her the help, and I didn't know how to hold both of those in the same hand. Brooke called your stepmother the help in front of the family, I said. It was a joke. It wasn't funny. You're acting like she committed a crime. I let the line breathe. Daniel, one question, and I want you to actually think. Do you respect Rosa? Of course I do. She raised me. Then do you think Brooke does? The pause told me everything. Brooke's got her own way, he finally said. She doesn't mean anything by it. You laughed, son. You laughed first. At the woman who raised you. He went silent. I'm not apologizing for my wife. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to think about what kind of person you're defending. And I hung up, because the last sentence only lands if you don't stay to weaken it. Over the next 2 days, I did the careful, unglamorous work. I called Priya back and walked her through it. Delia's account, the prepared documents, the resignation. I didn't editorialize. I laid the facts on the table and let them be facts. "This is solid," Priya said. "The full committee will have it before the vote." I'm not trying to end her career. I know. But people deserve to know who they're working with. Rosa walked in while I was on the screen. "What are you doing?" "Emails." She looked at me a long beat. She didn't believe me. She didn't push. She went back to the kitchen, and soon I heard the knife on the board, steady and rhythmic, the sound of a woman doing the one thing in her life that had never betrayed her. 3 days after Christmas, my phone buzzed. A text from Maya. "Dad, did you do something? Brooke didn't get the board seat. She's falling apart." I didn't answer. 20 minutes later, Daniel called. I let it go. He left a voicemail, his voice shaking. "I don't know what you did, but I know you did something. 2 years she worked for this. Suddenly there are concerns about her professional conduct. That's you. That's your network." I played it for Rosa. The color left her face. "Walter, what did you do?" I told the truth. That's all. So I told her everything. Delia, Priya, the board meeting, the pattern. And Rosa sat down very slowly, and what she said next is the thing I'll carry to the end of my life. I'd already forgiven her. I stared at her. The morning after Christmas, I decided I wasn't going to carry it anymore. I've spent 14 years deciding not to carry things, Walter. I'm good at it. She wrapped both hands around her mug. "And you made a decision about my life. About my dignity, without asking me. I made a decision about protecting you. I didn't ask to be protected." Her voice didn't rise. "That was the worst of it. I needed you to ask me what I wanted." And she stood and walked out, and I sat alone feeling like a man who'd won a game nobody had agreed to play. Here's the lesson I didn't want. You can be right and wrong in the same breath. You can defend someone in a way that erases them. I'd treated Rosa's wound as mine to avenge, and in doing it I took from her the one thing the dinner hadn't, the choice of how her own story ended. If you've ever loved someone so much you decided things for them, turn that over tonight. There's a hairline crack between protecting a person and overruling them, and most of us don't see it until we're on the wrong side. An hour later, Brooke was at our door. She didn't knock. She rang 6 times, then pounded with her fist. I opened it. Her makeup was ruined. "You destroyed me." I gave an honest reference when I was asked. "You lied about me because you can't stand that I don't bow to your wife." And then Rosa appeared behind me. She didn't tell Brooke to leave. She just stood there, arms at her sides, looking at her with something I'd never seen, not anger, not hurt. Something quieter and more final. "I made that tiramisu for you," Rosa said softly. "I made it for all of you, the way I've made everything for this family for 14 years. I spent the whole day on it because I wanted the night to be good." A pause. "I hope someday you understand what it cost me to keep trying to be let in." And for 1 second, something crossed Brooke's face. Surprise at being spoken to directly, or shame. I'll never know. It closed over like water. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" she said to me. That seat was everything. It wasn't a joke, Brooke, and it wasn't just Christmas. You've treated her like she was beneath you since the day you walked in, like 14 years of raising my kids meant nothing because she didn't give birth to them. I'm done watching. You're a controlling old man who can't stand that your son has a life that isn't about you. And you're a bully, I said. You hit people who can't hit back. The difference is, the people in your world listen to me, and now they know who you are. Her face crumpled. She looked at Rosa one more time, a look I still can't read, somewhere between fury and an apology she'd never learned how to make. Then she walked to her car, sat in it for a full minute, and drove off into the gray. I want to slow down here, because this is the part everyone gets wrong about stories like this. They think it ends with the car driving away. It never does. That night Daniel texted, "Don't contact me. Don't contact Brooke. We're done." Rosa read it over my shoulder and handed the phone back without a word. The boy she raised, closing the door she'd spent 14 years coaxing open. The months after were not a victory lap. In February, Priya mentioned Brooke had withdrawn from another position. Delia had ended up on the hiring committee by coincidence, and made sure the story was known. By March, Maya said Brooke's own director had started asking harder questions about how she treated her colleagues. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired. Reputations in a small professional world move on their own once the truth starts walking. I lit one match. I don't know how many rooms eventually filled with smoke, and I've made my peace with not knowing. There was a legal threat in the summer, a letter accusing me of interference and defamation, demanding a retraction. Rosa's hands shook when she read it. A lawyer I trust read it in 10 minutes and called it what it was: a scare, not a case. Truth is a complete defense, and everything I'd said was true and documented. The deadline passed. Nothing came. Brooke had spent thousands to frighten a man who'd only ever repeated the record. What did change was Rosa, slowly. She stopped bracing before family dinners. She started volunteering at a literacy center across town, among people glad to see her. She laughed more easily. She stopped apologizing for things that weren't hers to apologize for. One evening on the porch she asked, "Do you regret it?" "I regret that it had to happen," I said. "I don't regret protecting you. I forgave her, you know. I meant it. But forgiveness doesn't make the consequences disappear." She took my hand. "I think you did the right thing. I just wish you'd done it with me instead of for me." "I'm learning the difference," I said, slowly. The hardest part never resolved. Daniel moved away in the fall and didn't call to say goodbye. There's an ache there that doesn't heal so much as get familiar. Some nights I run the math: was the cost too high? Was there another road? Then I remember Rosa's cold hand at that table, and 14 years of her knocking on a door that finally slammed anyway, and I know I'd do it again. I'd just do it beside her next time, not in front of her. And then, in November, a small thing. A package on the porch, addressed to Rosa, no return address. Inside, a card with a single line in handwriting I almost recognized. "Thank you for the tiramisu recipe. It was the best part of Christmas." Rosa looked at it a long time. I thought of Maya, the way she'd shifted in her chair that night, the way she'd later asked, almost shyly, for the recipe. Rosa had sent it without telling me. She pinned the card to the refrigerator beside our wedding photo and never said who she thought it was from. Neither did I. So here's where I hand it to you, because I genuinely want to know. If you think I did right, if you'd have pulled that lever too, comment 1. If you think Rosa was right, that I had no business making her fight for her, comment 2. And if you think the truth is messier than either, that I was right and wrong at the same time, comment 3. That's where I land most days, but I've been wrong before. Tell me where you're listening from, and what time it is there right now. I like picturing the rooms this story travels into. And if you've ever sat silent at a table while people laughed at someone you love, tell me what you did. Tell me what you wish you'd done. If this story stayed with you, subscribe and stay a while. I tell true feeling stories about the moments families break and the choices that break them, and I'd be glad to have you here for the next one. This is a fictional story, inspired by real emotional experiences, fully rewritten and reimagined in Cincinnati to create original content. Any resemblance to real people or events is coincidental.